Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm so excited today to show you how to solo Street Masters: Rise of the Kingdom. Street Masters is a cooperative 1 to 4 person board game that is basically like an old school fighting game brought to life right on your table. Mechanically, it's probably the most similar to something like Sentinels of the Multiverse because your hero, your villain, and your stage are each controlled by a separate deck of cards. Street Masters is actually a mix and match game where you can pick any fighter, any boss, and any stage, but I'm going to give you just a little taste of story mode because one of the things I really like about games like this is when they offer story modes. So I'm not going to give you too much because there are little twists and turns along the way that I don't want to spoil, but this is the very first scenario from Rise of the Kingdom, the prologue. So we have, this was no mere tournament. The kingdom was playing host to hundreds of fighters from all over the globe, but you'd since learned the nefarious motive behind the contest. The winners were offered prestigious positions as officers in the kingdom's armed forces. The winners who refused this offer were to be captured and killed. You couldn't let this happen. While the media coverage of the tournament was focused on the sold-out arenas that showcased the high-profile fights, you learned of a network of underground street fights focused on bringing the most ruthless fighters out of the woodwork. However, you uncovered the real reason that these bouts were not publicized. They were brutal fights to the death, designed to reward depraved killers. You had no choice but to enter the fight and shut down the kingdom's efforts firsthand. So what's kind of nice about the story mode is that it tells you what stage to do and what enemy. So our stage is going to be sudden death. We're going to be fighting the kingdom. So it also gives us setup instructions. When setting up the enemy deck, instead of randomly choosing a boss, so the kingdom is an enemy deck that has multiple bosses in it, most don't, choose Kimono as the boss and set up the enemy deck accordingly. So why don't we just do that now? So the kingdom enemy deck actually has 3 different bosses in it. Here's Kimono, the one that the cards instructed us to use for this round, but you also have the Jackal and Shadow. Each of these also has their own tactical sets of cards. So for each time you play against them, you choose a boss, usually randomly, and then you set up the enemy deck to make sure that it has that boss's tactics cards in the setup. So when you create the enemy deck, this is the deck of tactic cards for a boss that we're going to keep, and then these guys are all just going to leave the game. We're also going to pick up this deck of enemies. So we have power soldiers, marionette dolls, and mountain generals. So another part of setup that you might want to do is you should get the miniatures for the enemies that are in the deck. So we're going to have 5 power soldiers, 5 marionette dolls, and 3 mountain generals in here. And what you should do is you should put a colored base to match the cards on each of the minions. So for example, we have power soldiers in multiple colors. So I put different colored bases on them so that when we have some confrontations in the arena, I can keep track of which power soldier is which, so that when I activate their cards, I'm moving the right figures at the right times and doing the right actions. Kimono also has specific setup instructions that say put Mutant Prowess into play. So we are going to put this card in his play area as we set up the enemy deck, and the rest we're just going to shuffle together. So now we can do some stage setup. See how this says Sudden Death in the corner right here? Sudden Death was the stage that was recommended to us on the Rise of the Kingdom story card. So we know that this is the one we're going to work with. So when you choose your stage, you pull out the stage tile. They're double-sided, and each will have the name of the correct stage on it. So this one is labeled Sudden Death. And then you get all the Sudden Death cards. So there will be a deck of those as well. Each stage is going to come with a card that gives you setup instructions. So in this case, we know that we need to remove Cull the Weak from the stage deck and put it into play in the enemy play area. Each fighter searches the stage deck for 1 copy of a new challenger. Put those cards into play in the stage play area, placing the tokens active side up, and shuffle the stage deck. So I need to find Cull the Weak and give it to my enemy, and I need to find 1 new challenger and put them in the stage play area. The back of the stage card also has some very useful rules. So we know that each objective token enters play active, which is good to know. Each time an objective would suffer any amount of damage, the corresponding token becomes inactive instead. Each time an objective is executed, its token is placed on this card, and its card is removed from the game. If there are 3 objective tokens on this card, the fighters lose. So this is our losing condition. So either the enemies just kill us, and so we lose because we're dead, or the enemies can actually pursue an objective, and if they successfully get it, then we lose anyway, even if we're still alive. And then there's also instructions for if we take the interact action, which is one of our options during a player turn. We're also going to choose a fighter. In this case, I'm going to go with Megan. She appears to like to kick people in the face, which is something I sympathize with. She will come with her own deck of specialized cards that are just for her. So all you have to do is shuffle them and put your character card into play. Megan's character card has quite a bit of information about her. We know that she has 16 health, that it requires 4 power to flip her over to her charge side of the card, which we're going to get to in a moment. And her basic attack does kick damage, as evidenced by the fact that there is a foot on her card. So her basic action is one that will probably take a lot. You just attack with 2 dice. And then after this attack, you can do some other stuff with your cards that we'll get to. If we do get enough power to flip her over to her charge side, as you can see, she has a more powerful attack with more dice, and her card effect becomes more powerful. So now it's time to finish setup by putting out different tokens and miniatures on this stage map to make it ready to go. First, we're going to add 6 punch defense tokens to our boss over here, Kimono. And we know that we need to do that because according to his Mutant Prowess card, when this card enters play, Kimono gains 6 punch defense tokens. There are 3 types of defense tokens in this game. There are also grapple and kick tokens that help you defend against specific types of damage. Kimono himself is going to go over here on this this little boss marker. So this little skull with wings, that is where your boss will go at the beginning of a round. These little joysticks down here are spaces where I can choose to put my fighter. So let's say that Megan wants to get into the thick of it. We're going to put her right here. These little crate tokens will go on these little spaces on the board that do look kind of like crates. So you just distribute those. If you get them, you can get cool stuff like loot cards, which can be fun during the game. We also have this red new challenger card that is going to be active in the stage area. So because this is red, we're going to place the red objective on the active side. This is the inactive side. Here's the active side. And we're going to put it right here on the matching symbol on the board. So now that everything's set up, we're going to go ahead and draw our opening hand, which is going to be 4 cards off the top of our deck. So I have Projected Chi, Flying Knee, Vaulting Kick, and Focused Resolve. So these are attacks. This is an ability. But what's most interesting about Megan is that she has these Chi cards. They're like tactic cards that you can play down here, and they stay in play. And then at various points in the game, you can resolve special actions on them that are more powerful than the card's main action. So now that we have our cards, we can actually just begin to play the game. So this card, every player gets one when they play, is so helpful. It just walks you through everything that you're supposed to do. So phase 1 is called the threat phase. You refresh each card in your fighter play area. So that means like if I had any cards that were exhausted, they would refresh. And then I would draw and resolve 1 enemy card. So let's go ahead and do that right now. All right, so let's draw. Okay, so we have drawn a power soldier. He's a minion, and he is going to spawn in one of these entry points on the board. So see how these little points have the arrows? This is how you know where minions can enter the board. And that's because minions always come in on the entry space that's closest to your fighter and that is unoccupied by another minion. Also see how he's yellow? That means that we are going to take the yellow power soldier and we're going to put him right here. This card is also going to tell us quite a bit about him. So let's put him over here. This is our threat area. Normally the threat area would be like on top of my cards, but I want to make sure you guys can see. He's going to be our leftmost guy, which means that he's going to resolve first. If you have multiple threats in this area, then you resolve them from left to right. But for now, he can't be exhausted. He gets an automatic kick defense token and an automatic grapple defense token. So let's get him his defense tokens, hopefully only to wear them away. He has 6 health and he attacks me for 3 every time he does an attack. And he also has an activate action that will read when it's time for him to have his actual turn. But for now, we've done our threat phase. I've drawn and resolved one enemy card, which means I drew him and then I put him on the board. He's resolved, he's here. Now it's the act phase, and that means that I get to take several different actions in any order that I like. So I can perform each of these steps in an order of my choosing. I can move, so move up to 3 spaces. I can take a card step, which means I play 1 card from my hand. I can take an action step, which means I can perform one of these actions. So I can sprint, which is basically like move twice. I can defend, which means I can gain a random defense token. I can do a card action, so I can resolve the action effect on 1 card in my play area. Or I can take the interact action, which means I can resolve the interact effect on any card that is in play. So let's figure out what I would like to do. So given that I can only move up to 3, I know I'm not going to get away from this guy, so let's get bold and go attack him. So I'm going to move right here. And then, let's see, do I want to play a card first? I'm going to put down a tactic, this projected chi. So if I want to use the interact action on it later, I can. And then I'm just going to do my basic attack, which according to my card says, attack with 2 dice. After this attack, you may resolve the channeled effect on a chi card that you control. So what that means is that now that I've played this card, I do have a channeled effect, and it says, deal 1 direct damage to each enemy engaged with you. So now that we're engaged, I will be able to deal an extra damage to this enemy. So to attack this dude, we're going to roll 2 dice. Let's see what we get. Okay, so I got 1 hit, and I got 1 defense. So the thing that stinks about a defense is that I didn't hit him. The good thing about a defense is that I get a defense token for myself that's of the damage type that I just did. So what that means is that I get this defense token for kicking, and I can put it on my card. So if somebody tries to kick me, I can use that to defend myself against some damage. I also hit him for 1. So I hit him for 1 kick damage. Unfortunately, he has a defense token that is a kick. However, we're going to take that away from him. And then I can use my channeled ability on this card, because that's part of my basic attack, to deal 1 direct damage to each enemy engaged with you. So I can deal direct damage to him, and what direct means is that it's just straight to him. It's not any kind of damage, it bypasses these defense tokens. So I can still do 1 bit of damage to him, which is a start. So we'll put 1 damage token right here on the Power Soldier. Sadly, we still have to get to 6 to beat him, but hey, you know, progress is progress. So now we're going to move into stage C, the react phase. From left to right, activate each card in your threat area by resolving its activate ability. So right now there's only 1 card in my threat area, and it's this soldier. His activate ability says, advance 4 spaces towards the nearest fighter and attack. Then, if unengaged, this enemy and each enemy within 3 spaces of it gains 1 random defense token. So that's not going to happen. He is just going to attack me because we are engaged with each other. That means that he is going to roll 3 enemy dice, and we'll see what kind of damage he can do. So the enemy dice have these different symbols that match the different kinds of damage on them, and we'll roll and see how he does. Brutal. Alright, so he got me for a grapple and 2 punches. I have no defense against those things, so I'm just going to take 3 damage. We're going to put those damage on Megan's card to keep track of what has happened to her. Now we're in the draw phase, which says draw 1 card and flip this card. So we'll draw 1 card off my draw deck, and then we flip the card so the enemy and the stage get to take turns. Okay, so now it's the enemy turn, and that means that all of these cards are going to activate. The first one's going to activate is Komodo himself, the boss. He's going to gain 2 random defense tokens. So he will get a kick and a grapple. So let's give him those. Oh, he's already got a lot of defense on him. I don't like it. He's also going to advance 3 spaces toward the nearest fighter. So, one thing that is interesting is that this objective is actually going to count as a fighter. Remember the premise of our story where there's like this secret underground tournament going on and they were going to eliminate all the little weak fighters? Well, this objective is just like a sad little challenger who like thought he could fight with the big guys, but is actually about to get killed. So he counts as a fighter for the purposes of this game. So he's an objective and a fighter. So right now while he's active, Kimono is going to move towards him 3 spaces. And then he is going to attack. So Kimono's attack is 5 dice. This challenger does not have any defense. Like, that is just not even going to happen. We don't even have to roll to know that. So Kimono is going to hit him. And then any damage that these objective fighters take in this round makes them inactive. Now that he is inactive, he is basically helpless. He's knocked out. If we were closer to him, we'd be able to go and maybe revive him and give him a couple of defense tokens. But sadly, Kimono is standing over him instead, and it's not going to look so good for him. Now we're going to activate this next card, Mutant Prowess. So it says, if Kimono is engaged, which he no longer is because he knocked that dude out, each fighter engaged with Kimono discards 1 power from this card. He gains power if he can't attack. And Kimono gains 1 punch defense token for each power discarded. So there's no power on the card, and there's no power to discard, and there's no one hurt, so just nothing will happen from this card. Then we're going to move on to Cull the Weak, which says, the boss moves 3 spaces toward the nearest inactive objective. Then, if engaged with that objective, the boss picks it up. So he's going to move on here, he's going to pick this dude up. He can only carry 1 objective at a time. But basically, he's going to drag off all of these like sad little fighters and kill them. It's delightful. So now this challenger is going to move over to the enemy area, and we're going to resolve him like an enemy card until we can basically get to the boss and get him back. So we're just going to leave this objective under to let us know that he's carrying it right now. So if he takes any damage, he'll drop it, and then we can like do something with the knocked out carcass of this weaker fighter. So for now, activate in the enemy play area. We need to roll 2 enemy dice. If results match, so if they're the same kind of damage, then this objective is executed. There are other little fighters in this deck, and if he manages to execute 3 of them, the game is over and we have lost. So let's see if this guy lives or dies for now. Oh no, those are 2 punches. Oh, that sucks. So this challenger is dead as a doornail. He's out of play. This objective goes over onto this card. And if this stage gets 3 objectives on it, we have lost. So that was very unfortunate for us, and also for this sad little fighter who thought that he stood a chance in this tournament. Now it's the stage turn. And so if this guy were still alive, he would have actually tried to like go and attack someone himself. Even though he's not very strong, he would like try to help us out. But that's not actually going to happen because he died. I feel like we need like an Oregon Trail, like doo-doo-doo kind of music for him. So we'll move on to the draw phase, where we're going to draw another stage card. So this one says, Overconfident. The active objective token on the map nearest the boss advances 4 spaces toward the boss and attacks. If there are no active objective tokens on the map, flip the inactive objective token nearest the boss to its active side. So actually this card isn't going to do anything because our active/inactive objective token was dead. And he's not going to be able to be overconfident because he can't be anything. He died. So there are also no objectives out right now because in the stage setup, you draw 1 objective card per fighter, and there's only 1 of me. That means that the other little challengers are still hiding somewhere in this deck. So I have to get rid of these guys before those guys can come out and get murdered. So that was the stage draw, and now it's the end of the phase. It is now my turn again, so we flip this card back to the fighter turn side. All right, so let's just walk through one more turn real quick so you guys can get a full sense of the flow of the game. So now we're going to have another threat phase. So that means that any cards that I had tapped would be refreshed on here. Sorry, had exhausted would be refreshed here. And then we're going to draw and resolve 1 enemy card. So we'll draw 1 more card off the enemy deck. Ooh, we're going to get a marionette doll. So she's going to become the rightmost card in my threat area. And now I'm going to be needing to deal with her. She gets 1 punch defense token. So here's the token she gets. And then that's her setup for now. She's green, so we're going to find the green marionette doll miniature. And since this entry space is still blocked off, she's gonna spawn right here. This is the closest one. So I'm about to get like piled on by all these bad guys. For right now, however, I'm engaged with this enemy, and I think, let's see if we can do anything with our cards. Because the threat phase is over, now I can act, which means I can move, play a card, and then take an action. So I'm gonna go ahead and get another cheat card down right now. It's called Barrier of the Will. So at the start of my turn, I can gain 1 random defense token. So at the start of next turn, I'll be able to do that. And then if I exhaust this card, if I had more than 1 fighter on the board, who was close to me, we'd both be able to get a defense token of our choice. And then if I channel it, I can heal 1 damage, which I might need pretty soon. So we're gonna go ahead and put that down. And then we're gonna do our basic attack again, which does 2 dice and then some direct damage. So we are gonna try to kick this dude and see how it goes. Oh, this is awesome. So these are critical hits. And what that means is that I get to count these as hits against him, and then I get to roll them both again. Theoretically, I could get infinite critical hits, but that is unlikely. All right, so we've done 2 damage against him, and let's roll again and see what we get this time. Okay, so we got 2 more hits. So what this means is that we just hit him for 4, and then, because I used my regular attack, I may resolve the channeled effect on a chi card that I control. So I'm going to choose again to use projected chi and deal 1 direct damage to each enemy engaged with me. So that means that he had 5 health left, and we just did 5 damage to him. He died. Awesome. So the power soldier is out of commission. And we'll just put him over here in the enemy discard pile. So now that the enemy's been defeated, I can draw 1 loot card. Let's see what I get. I've gotten Sneakers. Discard this card during a kick attack to add +2 dice to the attack. Awesome. I'll keep this for later. I still do have the option to move, and I think I'm going to do that because I want to start going towards this crate. This Marionette's still going to catch me on her next activation, but that's okay. We're moving towards something that's some kind of goal while we're trying to power up and beat this boss. So now we're in the react phase, and that means that the marionette doll in my threat area is going to activate and come at me. So we know that if I had no defense tokens, which fortunately I do, she'd actually have an extra attack value on me. Yikes. So she's going to come 3 spaces towards me. She only needs to move 2. And she is going to attack me for 2. So I'm going to roll 2 enemy dice and see what damage she does. Fortunately, one of those is kick. So I can actually take this defense token, that's kick, and I flip it. This is power. So if I want to flip over to Megan's more powerful side, I need this to happen to me 4 times. So getting hit isn't always a bad thing, especially if you can defend against it. So I do still take 1 damage, but it's only 1. So let's give me my damage. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to go ahead and draw 1 more card. So we got Gale of Force, it's another attack. And then we're gonna flip the fighter card over to run the enemy turn and the stage turn. So once again, Kimono is going to get 2 random defense tokens, so he's going to get a kick and a grapple. This is bad. And then once he's gotten those, he's going to move 3 spaces towards me. So that's also pretty brutal. He's headed our way. This is not good. So he's advancing 3 spaces toward the nearest fighter, and he attacks each fighter within 2 spaces of him, but he can't because there isn't anyone here. So if he's unable to attack, he puts a power on each of his tactic cards. So he's going to put a power over here on the Mutant Prowess card. So a power goes onto this card. Then we activate Mutant Prowess. So if Kimono's engaged, then he would do a certain action, but he isn't. So otherwise, discard each power on this card, and Kimono gains 1 punch defense token for each power discarded. So he's going to discard this power, and it's going to turn into another punch defense token for him. So he's just getting huge over here. It's pretty brutal. So next he would head toward the nearest inactive objective, but there aren't any because he killed the only one that was currently out on the board. So he's just gonna hang out, and that was the enemy turn. And now we're at the stage turn. So there are no permanent cards out to activate, so we're gonna go straight to the draw phase and we're gonna see what comes up. Assistance required. Each fighter may discard 1 card from their play area. If less than 1 player cards are discarded this way, this card deals the active objective nearest an enemy 3 general damage. If no active objectives are in play, search the stage deck for an objective card and put it into play if able. Shuffle the stage deck after searching it. Alright, so this is how another little fighter dude can come out and play with us. So, I don't want to discard any cards from my play area anyway. There are no active objectives in play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search the stage deck to pull out another objective. So let's look until we find one. Where is one? Okay, so we have this green, a new challenger. So this event occurred, and then we went in here and we brought out a new challenger. So that means that we're going to put his objective on the board, and he is going to be our next big thing for the enemies to chase after. All right, so we now have this active objective right here. And so next turn, he'll be able to do something. So then that's the end of the stage phase, the stage turn, and then we'll flip back over to the fighter turn and continue with what we were doing. So that is basically the turn flow and structure of Street Masters. It's very simple. You're really just playing off of the 3 decks that you have and paying close attention to what the cards say. You also have to keep track of your defense tokens because, you know, even when the dice don't go your way, if you roll one of these guards, then you get more defense, and that's something that you want because you can charge up, flip over, and get other abilities that way. So I really like the interaction between cards and dice in this game. I like the really structured turn flow. There are moments where you may not be able to do what it says in a card. For example, when somebody was asking me to do something with, you know, an active objective or an inactive objective and there weren't any out. But as long as that sort of thing doesn't freak you out and you just continue logically with what's going on in the game, everything works great. It's so fun, it's so thematic. It really feels like I'm in the middle of a brawl against a big, nasty boss. And I'm gonna turn off the camera now and play the rest of this out just for me. So I highly recommend Street Masters. I think you should give it a try. It will be back on Kickstarter soon for a reprint, so definitely have a look, and happy gaming.